Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I've got such a special guest today, Sierra Lavallee. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You didn't, but I didn't want to correct you. It's Lavallee, actually. So,
Lavallee?
yes,
Oh my gosh, now you sound French.
that's what his family's, that's what his background is. So when my
Oh my
husband got,
gosh.
yeah.
Wow.
So his dad is from Belgium. That's why. So Lavallee is how it's pronounced. But he had the same,
Lavallee.
yeah, he had the same last name as one of his coaches, and they pronounced it Lavallee. So
Okay, so I wasn't too far off.
no, you weren't at all.
All right, amazing. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Let's catch everybody up to speed just a little bit because you and I have a tiny bit of a history. I think we met, was it last year? Was it 2023 or did we meet in 22? I think it was 2023.
I
I
think
think
it
it
was
was the
2020.
last year before the summer.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay. So Sierra and I met last summer. I was consulting, still consult. I was consulting with an amazing company. Sierra was doing some social media work for that company, like some social media freelance work. And I think this was around like, I don't know, like February, March, April, like somewhere in that world, 2023.
Yep.
And I don't believe at the time you actually had your own business, did you?
No, I didn't actually. I was just freelancing, working for them, like a little bit of here in the area to have other gigs, but really no business.
Okay. So you didn't have like an LLC set up or anything.
Nope, I had none of that set up. I didn't even know if this is something I wanted to do. So at that
Oh
time,
my God. I don't know if I knew that.
yeah, it was something that I wasn't even thinking about doing like fully and jumping into as a business. I just saw it as like an ends to a means to figure out what I wanted to do essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really cool. So Sierra and I have, I mean, you and I have had a relationship ever since then. And fast forward, I started doing just some like mentoring and some coaching with you. I think it was March, February or March of 2024. Is that accurate?
Yes, it was. I asked you, I was
Okay.
like, will you be a mentor of mine?
I love it. I've had so much fun. I miss it when we like skip a week.
I know. I get sad. I'm like, wait, I miss Megan. I want to see her.
I know. It's so fun. Okay. So take us back to we were just talking before we press record. Your LLC opening inception date was October 8th, 2023. So at the date of this recording, you are a year and 10 days old. So take us all the way back to the start of your business, what it was like, what kind of business you started, um, and what those first few months, what was it like building a business? What was your work schedule like? What was working? What wasn't working? And then we'll kind of pick up with you've shifted like dramatically in the last 6 months. So start back to the beginning of October last year.
Okay, so in October last year, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing at all. I didn't know what I was actually going to end up doing. I had dabbled in, I mean, I knew social media. I've been doing it since I was like 18. I'm 27 now. And I knew that. But I also was dabbling in like videography, doing brand days, doing social media for companies at their retreats. So I was a mix of doing it kind of all. So at that point, it was kind of chaotic. I had no real set, like I had two set clients, but then I was also doing a bunch of side projects. And then I just randomly decided to open an agency after seeing some other agencies run and the possibility of like actually seeing social media and social media agencies specifically just completely take off. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this. But there were so many different avenues that I could take from content creation, actually like being in the room with people and creating their content, all the way to just making like content calendars, posting, and being more of the strategist. So back then, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like it was all over the place. I was doing it all. If someone offered me something, I just took it.
Yeah, but in the beginning of the business, I think that's probably the best way to go because most people in the early stage of their business, like year one, you know what your craft is, you know what you're good at, and you have a bit of an idea of like, okay, I know what problems I can solve. I know what solutions I can bring to the table, but who really is the ideal client? What's really the way that I want to work with people? And sometimes I think I'd actually be interested to hear what you have to say about this because you are more like the marketing social media expert. I think oftentimes in the beginning stages, people think they have to niche really, really early and they've got to niche, they've got to know the niche and it's got to be narrow as soon as they start. But sometimes I think it's better to try working with different types of people, try delivering in different ways. And that's what you did. Now, it has its good side and it also has its bad side. But what did you find working with different people in different ways and different types of projects? Like what actually led you to working with the type of client you're working with now and the way in which you're working with them? Like, how did you figure that out?
Really trial and error. I realized who I didn't want to work with and who I did want to work with and who I didn't want to work with. Because quickly I realized there were certain clients that I was like, okay, this is going to take more time. It's going to take more energy versus other clients who were, I really enjoyed kind of guiding the type of client that was just starting out and didn't really know what social media was. I figured out fast that I actually liked that client because they were more hungry to figure out what was going to work. They were more willing to make more content. And I loved that because it was more exciting. And I got to be more strategic about what I post and what I give them to create. So quickly, I was like, I like that client, which is very funny because a lot of people don't like that client. They go opposite. They want the client who's a little bit more established, has maybe some content that they've already made. And for me, I enjoyed the process of like helping someone. It kind of fed that part of me where I was like, oh, I'm helping a new business start something. So I do have clients that have both. So I have clients now that have hundreds of videos. I basically can go through anything and find they're speaking on stages, but then I also have the client that's just starting out. So I really kind of had to navigate um that. But there's a second part of this. I also had to navigate what industries I wanted to help out in. So from deciding, did I want to go the coaching realm or did I want to go, beauty experts or whatever it was, influencers, I ended up finding doctors. And that was just through connections. And doctors, believe it or not, are actually really fun to work with and super interesting. So I found my niche fairly quickly, just thanks to, connections and networking. And I didn't realize that because I had been in the coaching space and like helping coaches build their social media out, and I liked it, but I wasn't loving it. And so when I found this niche, I found it interesting. I found it exciting, and it was like a new way to create content. And there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And that's kind of how I fell into finding my ideal client now. But it really took me grabbing different projects, seeing if I liked working with that person, seeing if I liked that industry before really niching down and then learning more and more about whatever I was going to choose, which ended up being doctors.
Now, do you know anything about what the doctors are doing? Like, are you skilled at that? Did you have any type of knowledge about that before you started working with them at all?
No, I had no idea. I had no idea that there was even doctors out there that were willing to do some of this stuff. So I work directly with direct primary care doctors, which is essentially doctors who like open up their own private practices. And then I work with a longevity doctor, which is my goal for 2025 to work with more longevity doctors. Very interesting niche. I knew nothing about either of them before entering it. But as I kept on going and learning more and more, I was able to really understand their brands and really provide them a strategy that was going to work for their social media and drive results.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant that you niched into that.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, especially because there's not that many people who are just focusing on doctors who are who are providing the service you're providing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really open market. Okay. So you figure that out. And then let's fast forward to, I don't remember what month you and I started doing some mentorship work together. I think it was February or March, somewhere around there. I just remember you were working so many hours, Sierra. But take us back to, and I don't even know if you ever told me this, but why did you why did you even ask for me to be your mentor? Like, what was going on? What was going on in life or your business that prompted you like, hey, I want this person to be my mentor. I'm looking for some support. Like, what were you actually looking for?
I was looking for someone who had knowledge in like the online space, like you do. And then I was also just wanting a woman mentor. So during that time in my life, I had, and honestly, going backwards, I have grown up in a family of entrepreneurs. My dad has a 10-figure business all over Southern California. So I knew and I have watched my whole life him grow this major company. Um, he's well on his way to 11 figures. And so I've watched him completely just blow up. And I was like, I want to be able to create a business. You know, I've seen so many family members create businesses and create this life, and I want to do that. And so I was determined to get there as fast as I can. And one of the things that I wanted to do was find a mentor that was going to be one, a woman, because I'd been surrounded by men entrepreneurs. And so I was like, who do I know that is a woman in business and I could ask, and that was you. And that's actually how I like, that's how I determined because I knew I was like, in order to grow, I need to find like a mentor. Like I need to know how do I even do a business? Like I watched my dad do it, I watched my uncle do it, watched my grandpa do it, but like how do you actually do it?
Yeah.
So, and I was working so many hours. I was just taking anything at that point and just working, working, working. And I was like, I need to know how to actually structure a business at this point because I'm going to get burnt out.
Yeah. So you were working, you were delivering a service, and you were at that point, you were making money. So
Yes.
it really wasn't, I mean, there's a difference in making money and building a business. And you were hustling and grinding to make money.
Mhm.
And look, I'm going to be really honest with everybody listening to this. Sometimes you have to have seasons of hustle. Like you
Mhm.
just do. There are going to be seasons of hustle and grind. You do what you got to do. And I think what we have to remind ourselves, especially as women, your hustle and grind season does not have to last forever. It doesn't have to last beyond one season. Now, that doesn't mean you may have other time periods in the growth of your company or other companies that you're growing where you might have another season of hustle. It just depends on the phase that you're at. So I want people to understand like it's okay to have seasons of hustle and grind. What's not okay, which will burn you down and burn you into the ground, it's you can't sustain a hustle and grind season into every other season into the future. And I think
Mhm.
that's also a difference between men and women. Now, I love learning from men. I mean, I have male coaches, I have had male coaches. I love being around male entrepreneurs, but they're also wired in a way where they could just stay focused and stay in the hustle and grind 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it doesn't have the same effect on them. Whereas we work more in a cycle. We're women.
Mhm.
Hormonally, we kind of fluctuate and we work in cycles. So you were working a lot of hours. And I don't remember, Sierra. I don't know if you remember. Did you have any help? Did you have any team members at all when we first started talking once a week, or was it just you?
It was just me. I had no help. I had connections through another marketing agency who was outsourcing to me. Still work with them. They're amazing. But I was siloing just doing all the social media. And so um, that was a crazy time in my life because I knew I didn't want to continue to work at this capacity because I was exhausted. I wasn't happy. I didn't know if this is exactly what I wanted to do, to be honest. At that point, I was like, is this what my whole life is going to be all the time? Is just constantly worrying about a task list essentially. And so it was starting to burn me out essentially and I was tired. You remember Megan, I was exhausted, but I had no help. No help. Not even
Yeah.
the thought
Okay.
of
No help.
hiring. Yep.
Yeah, I remember one of our first conversations because we actually talked a lot about the personal life side of things. We were kind of intertwining life and personal and business. I
Yep.
remember this was probably the first month, but I remember talking to you about what you wanted and how you wanted your days to be structured, and what were some of the things that you were neglecting about your own self, like just taking really good care of yourself. And I remember you telling me that you were like barely going outside. And one of
Mhm.
the things you said you wanted to do was, I think you said like just go on a walk. And so I was like, so go on a walk every day. Like, where could you go walk? And you were like, there's a lake right beside where I live, or some sort of body water with like a sidewalk around it. And it's like a mile loop. I
Mhm.
remember that was something that was like, at that time for you, that was so significant. And that was, it seems so small when you're just listening to us talk about, like, hey, just go for a 15-minute walk every single day. But
Yeah.
that was so significant for you at that time. Can you kind of unpack, like, why was, and there's maybe some other examples you want to share as well, but what was significant about starting to redevelop some of those healthier habits on the life side? And how did that impact you as an individual and your business?
So, yeah, I wasn't going outside. I really wanted to just start develop a healthier lifestyle for myself because I was working early mornings, late nights. And I found myself with heavy brain fog. I found myself just getting depressed, and neglecting some of, the things that I really wanted. So all of these hours started to add up, and just that 15-minute walk felt like it was going to take away like video editing, or maybe it was just strategy, or maybe it was research, or whatever it was. I felt like 15 minutes was going to take that away. So you saying that to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to make an effort. And when I did make an effort to do that, it ended up actually relieving, just even a 15-minute walk, relieving that brain fog, making me more willing to learn about my industry and become more of the strategist I was hoping to be, just by including taking care of myself. And a lot of women, and if there's any firstborn girls out here, I'm a firstborn girl. We tend to neglect ourselves to make sure everyone else is taken care of. And that's exactly what I was doing in my business, to make sure that everything else was taken care of before I took care of myself. So when I started to prioritize that, things started to change in my business and personally.
Okay. Yeah. I think we as women, sometimes, not all women are like this, but sometimes we turn into, we're the business owner. And in the early stages, we're usually the one who's also providing the service. We're the one, it's our craft, we're providing the service. And we turn into too much of a people pleaser. So we're
Mhm.
like bending over backwards for every single client demand. And I think you were doing a little bit of that,
I
right?
was. I was absolutely, absolutely. I would anything and everything. And I wasn't deciding what I wanted to do in my business. That
Yeah.
was that was hard for me because I was still grabbing at pretty much everything. And I would go do things and I was like, I don't love this and I don't want to do this. So
Yeah.
still in that phase as well.
Okay, cool. All right. Thinking back, were there any specific breakthroughs or moments, whether it was a conversation you and I were having, or an exercise I had you do, or just something that you did on your own the last 6, 7 months that really shifted things for you significantly? And maybe it was something that was like the beginning of this massive shift that you've made, which we'll get to, like kind of what your business looks like today.
Yeah. There's actually a few things. One was when you told me to figure out what my values were. When I started to actually hone in on what I wanted, which was very, very hard to figure out at first, I'm not gonna lie. I realized what was important to me and what those values were. And when you broke it down to me, I didn't realize what was important. And then I started to analyze my friends around me and what their values were. And they were entrepreneurs or like high achievers in like what if it was a corporate or whatever. So I have friends that are lawyers, entrepreneurs, everything. And I kind of started to see like, oh, a lot of people my age, like we don't know our values. We're just working, working, working. And so when I started to figure that out, I was like, oh, if I actually understand what my priorities are in my personal life, I could start to prioritize that and create a business that is actually going to help me do more of what I value. And so that was a big revelation for me, which then started to make me think outside the box about how I could structure my business in order to allow me to have more time in that those values and those personal goals. So that was huge. Then after that came hiring, and that was the biggest jump for me because I didn't know that hiring was going to be this amazing thing that was going to make the business go forward and make me feel so much better. Like, honestly, I didn't realize that at all. That was like one of my biggest revelations was hiring someone. And I was so nervous about it, but also I was like, I'm just going to rip it off like a band-aid because that's how I do everything is I just try it and see what happens.
Okay. So people have like frame of reference. Do you know how much top line revenue was your business bringing in per month when you made your first hire? And again, so the listeners know you are not hiring a full-time employee. So unpack that a little bit.
So at the time, I was looking for someone who was like 10 hours a week, 20 at $20 an hour. I just needed someone to create little graphics for me to relieve creating the graphics off. At the time, I thought that's what I needed. I was making it kind of fluctuated at that point, but it was anywhere from seven to $8,000 a month in the business. Um, and with potentially more coming. So at that point, it was like guaranteed more people in June, and this was May, and I was like, I need someone. Or no, this was April. I was like, I need someone before May to put someone in place in June. And I ended up
Mhm.
hiring two girls, one who was a graphic designer and one who was just really good in general on social media, but she was just like a mom who wanted a couple hours a week. And so uh, both of them, I ended up hiring both of them, which was kind of crazy, but it was just a few hours a week. And yeah, it took a little bit more of my income, but it helped me feel so much better that I was actually able to like do more. So I had to lose a little bit of an income, right? Even though it was a little bit more than I expected in order to grow. And I mean, the summer is when it all kind of happened at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to that. I want to go back to the values. So, can you share what are your top three values?
Mhm.
And then, can you share some of the decisions that you've made in your life and your business as a result of designing the life and the business based on those values? So, what are they for you? And we don't all have the same as you and I actually have different values. Our
Yeah.
top three values are different. We all have the same set of values, but they might be in a different order. And oftentimes, I think this is what happens. I'm just actually reflecting on this in this moment. I think sometimes we're watching other people or our coaches or our mentors or people who are super successful that we admire and the way that they're operating in life and business. Hopefully, it is by design based on what their value system is. And sometimes I think we have our own separate value system that we are unaware of, but we try to shape shift into running our business and life like this other person who is either telling us to do it that way. Because look, I'm going to be really honest. There's a lot of coaches and mentors, and they're not bad. They're not bad people at all, but they're telling all their clients to all be a certain way, but that
Mhm.
certain way might have worked for them, didn't actually work for every single one of their clients. So what are your values and how do you make decisions now based on those?
What you said was spot on, by the way. But yeah, what especially with young, like, um, to the older women out there, us young girls in their under 20s and even our early 30s, we are watching you because you guys did it before us. So we are watching like how you live life or how you do things, right? So just so you're aware. But my top three values were family, friends, and then the finance aspect. So three F's. I really wanted, and the finance part kind of goes with the security part. I wanted to be able to see my husband when I want to see him. Background on that, my husband is a professional athlete. He travels constantly. So for me to actually go see him, I needed capital in order to go see him, right? And be able to take a business anywhere. So that's also ties into the family part. So how I figured that out was I just kind of analyzed where I wanted to spend time and where I was craving to spend time. I loved going to dinner with my friends. I loved hanging out with them. I spent a lot of time with my family, my grandparents, my mom. my brothers. I loved just even going to breakfast with them or whatever it was. And then the finance part was again like being able to go travel to go see my husband while he's doing what he loves, or um, being able to just like do some of those things that I just talked about, right? And feeling
Mhm.
that security. Um, I don't need anything fancy. I just wanted to be able to go do all those things, right? And be able to
Yeah.
provide for my husband as he continues to build towards what he's looking to. And so at that time, I was like, how am I going to create a business that was going to allow me to do all of this, right? And those were
Mhm.
my three values. Um, so yeah, what was the second part of your question? Or did I answer it?
Uh, no, I think you covered it. I wanted to know
Okay.
what were the values, and then how has knowing those values shifted the way you're making decisions in your business and in your life?
Oh yeah. And oh, from there, I guess when figured those out, I was able to figure out where I wanted to place people. Cause after I figured out how I should hire, I was like, where am I going to place people where majority of my time is being taken up? So I analyzed my hours and I realized, okay, where can I outsource? Clearly, the strategy part, I'm never going to be able to, well, not never, never say never. I'm not going to be able to outsource right now because I'm the strategist. However, I could outsource in certain areas that were taking a long time for me. So I started by analyzing my hours and where I was spending my hours, and then placing people in those areas. And voila, I was able to go to breakfast with my mom when I wanted, or I was able to
Yeah.
travel to see Johnny, or like
Yeah.
room, things started to make room and space. So I realized I was able to like relax because I was just running at a million miles an hour at that point.
Yes. Now, tip for the listener. A lot of people bring team members on for a certain number of hours a week, and they make up activities and tasks for them to do.
Mhm.
And that's not what we did with you. With you, we were like, you need to go write down how you're spending all your time, and you need to figure out the things you're already doing. And we didn't do a lot at first. It was, I mean, you already said it, like you just did graphics at first, but over time, you just started adding more and more things onto what your team members were doing based on, how well they're progressing, their confidence level, how many hours they want to work. But for those of you listening, and maybe you're newer to hiring people, or maybe you have hired people and it's not working out the way you wanted it to, or you don't feel like you have enough for them to do, that's what a lot of people are actually doing incorrectly. They're hiring people and then they're
Mhm.
dreaming things up for them to do, and
Yep.
it's not actually taking anything off your plate. So never hire someone where you've then got to figure out what to give to them. You just simply take one or two tasks that you're doing, one or two at a time, and then you train them on how you want it done. They take it off your plate, and then, you go from there. So you've done that so well, Sierra, too. I mean, you've
Yeah.
led your team incredibly well. I mean, it is mid-October. You didn't hire until you hired in April. That's not even 6 months.
Yeah, they actually technically started May 1st. So yeah,
Okay.
it
Yeah.
was it was interesting at first because I was so
Yeah.
nervous. Like I remember my first team call, and I knew how I wanted to lead and I knew how I didn't want to lead. I experienced leaders in my life where I was very unhappy under their leadership, and then I experienced leaders where I loved their leadership. And then I had watched other women do it, right? And men. Watched my dad, do it for years. And so I went about it um, really wanting to be a little bit of a certain servant leadership style, and
Mhm.
also just wanting to be an encourager. I am very drawn to seeing the best in people, pulling it out of them and just encouraging them at it. And so that is how I led the team. And I started to figure things out about them, and I started to see their superpowers. That's what I call it. I started to see my team's superpowers around July, and I was like, oh, I'm going to dive into this. And I just encouraged them into it. And now one of my employees is like amazing. She's like my little secret sauce, I call her. And she is actually on her way to becoming just as much as a social media strategist as I am. She is really well on her way there. She's so amazing. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So April, you're making 7 to 8,000 a month top line revenue. You
Hmm.
bring on two people just for a few hours a week. You knew that you were going to blow up in June. So now let's fast forward a little bit, kind of walk us through like what happened in the summer months and then take us to like, what does your business look like today? How much do you bring in top line revenue? How many clients are you working with? How many hours are you actually working? Walk us through that.
Okay, so June I thought was going to be my moment. It's actually July. July came around and it was the most I ever made in my business. I was close to $17,000 at that in top line revenue in July. I was so close to 17. I think it was like 16,600 and something. Like I was so close. And I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I was very close. And then I lost some clients in August and September, which was fine. That happens in business, and I'm not too worried about it because I'm happy where the business is right now. Uh, but my goal is to get to 20,000 a month in 2025 or even sooner if I can.
Mhm.
But where I am now, I have three team members outside of myself. So we're a team of four. I have one girl at about 20 hours a week. It does fluctuate depending on the month. Um, and also if there's tasks, which she kind of understands. She's also a photographer. And then I have an intern and then I have a copywriter. Right now I'm bringing in, it's around 14. I'm hoping to get to 15 by the end of the month if I sell this one other client. And then I have the possibility of getting to, it'll add on more. So it'll be 18 in November, depending on if I get a yes on these three other clients I'm in the middle of selling. So how I did that from May to now is a little bit of risk. I sat down with my dad at a dinner one night in June and I was like, well, Dad, I'm really growing. And I don't know if I'm going to have the capacity to do it. He goes, and I told you this, Megan, you just say yes and then you go figure it out. And I was like, well, that's how I've been doing things. So, okay. So I just said yes to people. And I knew that I needed to build, I talked to you about this, Megan. I was like, how do I build SOPs around certain things? And so after July and it being so chaotic, I was like, I really want to make sure I structure this business so I'm less out of it. That was my goal since I hired, right? But with increase in, you know, people or clients, I was like, I'm going to be more in the business, right? So I was like kind of weaning in on, okay, I have these girls. What are their superpowers? And I actually lost one of my team members in July. So this being my top month, I lost a team member. I was trying to hire this other person and then I didn't like her, like not didn't like her, but I was just like, I don't know if I have the capacity for you. And I didn't know where to place her. And I just kind of like ended up just being like, okay, I don't need to grow anymore. I need to put SOPs in place. So August and September were my SOP months. I wasn't selling. I wasn't, going out and asking for more. If it fell into my lap, I would say yes. But really, I was like, how am I going to structure this and get my team in a place where I could manage them? So now, one of my girls, the girl that's working 20 hours a week, she runs pretty much, all of the tasks. She manages pretty much the team and my intern. So them two are there doing the bulk of the business, the heavy lifting of the business. And I'm sticking in that like strategy area along with the video editing because I haven't figured out how to really outsource that yet. And I work about 20 hours a week in the business right now. So it's not that much actually, which is great. It's exactly what I wanted. So that I can figure out how to grow another passion project of mine, which is my podcast.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I was going to ask you about that. How many clients do you have?
what did I say the other day? I have to add them all up, but I
I
have
think I think you told me 14.
14, but 15 possibility. That's the other
Okay.
thing. That's
Okay.
what it
So we'll
was.
say 15. Okay.
I
So
can't
this is
remember
so
all their
cool.
names. Like, you know what I mean? Like like when I add
Yes.
them all up, I just look at them, if that makes sense.
Yes. So you've got this lean team that without this massive overhead, which you trained up properly, you
Mhm.
have scaled back. I think you were probably working like 50 to 60 hours a week when we first started working together. I would
Yeah,
say
I
you
was
were
working on the
pushing that.
weekends. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You were working when you were like on trips. I remember that too. You were at like a baby shower or a wedding or something, maid of honor, and you're like over here and your friends are like, "What are you doing?" I remember that. So now to like this full load of clients with room to grow, and you get to decide how big or small you want to keep that. You're only working 20 hours a week. You are on site with your husband who's playing in a fall league with his professional sport. So you're getting to do
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And I know about this passion project. So the way that you're running your business and the way you've structured it and living by your values, it's also allowed you to pursue this other passion project. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I have a podcast called Call Your Mom. It is with my mom. And essentially, I really, it's funny. For a long time, I've always had friends come to my mom for advice and sit on the couch and ask her about life, about things, about, anywhere from relationships to career advice to babies. And I loved pouring into my friends. They call me the honest friend because I tell them the truth. And I wanted to turn that into a podcast and help other women my age, from 20s to 30s, somethings. And so my mom and I came up with this podcast, and I was like, Mom, let's just make it like it's our living room. Like our friends, my friends are coming, right? But it's the podcast, it's the viewers. They're coming with their problems, their issues, and they just need mom advice because not everyone can turn to their mom. And so that's what we talk about. Anything under the sun that has to do from 20 somethings, 30 somethings. I mean, even if you're in your 40s or 50s, my mom is 46, almost 46. Sorry, mom. And she talks about her walking through life, having a baby really young, even going through divorce now. And um, it really is like a big passion project of mine. And I just love encouraging people and I love pouring into people. And so now that I've really scaled back on my business, I'm able to do more of that. And I tried to early on, Megan, I tried early on outsourcing my podcast. And I found, because I was so busy in the business and I found myself not being as happy. And now I'm in the business, or now I'm in the podcast because I'm more outside of my business. And I find that is really like what I wanted. And I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love
Yeah.
it. Oh my gosh, Sierra. Um, Another question for you. How has having a mentor like empowered you, built your confidence, invited you to be more bold or like just bring out more of who you really are on the inside to the outside world?
Well, I could totally speak to you, Megan. You are amazing. You and Sean have really helped me and Johnny because Sean is Johnny's mentor, everyone. But I would say number one is accountability. I
Mm.
didn't realize how much accountability I needed. Just the pressure of showing up and wanting to tell you, like, I did this today was like number one thing that helped me get past, because like if I didn't have someone to turn to be like, this is what I did, um, I wouldn't have scaled the way I scaled and I wouldn't have challenged myself the way I did. The other thing is I'm just more confident in general because I doubted a lot of myself if I was even capable of doing this. Just because of the things that I walked through, I really had self-confidence issues of
Mm.
like, am I good enough to be able to make something like this? Am I even capable? Do I even have the knowledge to do so? And you just really pulling that out of me and saying, hey, there are other customers out there. There are other people out there. Just go, discover that really helps me, see that value in myself. And then like also like being told making six figures in your business was really, really hard. And like, cause I was like, I want to make six figures in 2 years. And it was like, oh, that's hard to do. Like, that's really hard to do. And I was like, I could do it though. Well, I did it in less than, I did
You
it in
did
less
it in
than a
less than a
year.
year.
Yeah, I did it in less than a year. And that challenged me so much. And then having you really help me structure how the business works and what that looks like really encouraged me. But just in general, my confidence shot through the roof because
Yeah.
I felt so much value in myself at that point because someone else saw value in me.
Yeah. Aw, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were going to speak to another woman who's like thinking about coaching or mentorship and they're not quite sure, what would you say to her?
Hands down, do it. Don't say to yourself that you can just do it, because you need the accountability, you need the encouragement, you need the ideas. I mean, there's so many things that I would have never thought of that you um gave me, Megan, and you're like, you should do this or you should do that. And now I use it in my business and it's completely changed the way it looks, the way it works, the way it runs. And also just the confidence in who I am as a woman and the capability of achieving something like this. Um, really has just allowed me to step outside myself and be able to encourage my team and other people, because you've really helped me develop into the leader that I'm hopeful for. And so if anyone is doubting, like, look, I don't know if I can do something like this, or do I even have the time? You have the time. Make the time. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I tried to tell myself that too. It was a lie.
Well, here's the other thing I'm going to say about you, Sierra. You also came into this. I mean, every single time we've had a conversation, and I've told you numerous times, I'm like, you are literally like an A+ star student, because every single thing I have told you to do, you have turned around and done it, even when it's uncomfortable, like having uncomfortable conversations with team members or creating the SOP or anything with finances or tracking your time or going for the walk for 15 minutes. Like, I don't think there's anything we have talked about that you have not done. And oftentimes when you work with a coach or a mentor or a consultant or whatever, I mean, I have a mentor too. I have a coach as well. And when I hired this person, they said to me in the sales consultation, if I'm going to bring you on, you have to do everything I tell you to do. Because if you're not going to be the kind of client who does everything I tell you, like, it's not going to work. And you've done that. Like, you've done every single thing and more. You didn't just like do it, like you did it and you took it to a whole nother level. And I also think kudos to you, because you can't just talk to me and be successful. You actually had to go take the action. Like you said, you've taken a lot of risks. You've really stepped out into the unknown, and it's paid off like tenfold for you.
It has, because I'm able to do the things that I love. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's very, very scary to do some of these things. Naturally, I am a risk taker. I have started businesses since I was like 5 years old, like from a lemonade stand with my friends. Like, and I just have always been one to kind of take a little bit of a risk. And so at the time when I was working with you and I was just starting all of this, I knew what I wanted. And I even have journaling back years, Megan, of things like, I want to travel the world, and just like, I want to do this, or I want to be able to have a business that's going to be able to take anywhere. I have journals that say that. I was reading them like in
Wow.
2018, right? I had no idea how to do that. I thought I was going to be like, I was in college thinking I was going to be a lawyer. I'm not even a lawyer at all. Okay. I didn't go to law school. And now I'm here. And I was reading those journals the other day and I thought to myself, wow, I am traveling with my husband, taking my business anywhere. And because I took action, I actually am living that. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't take the action. And even with the podcast, I put myself on delay. Even this year, I had the podcast. I was like, I'm going to do it January, and I'm looking and it's October, right? And yes, I had some, things happen, during the summer with this podcast. But I said, I am not going to leave 2024 without having consistency with this podcast. And part of that was you keeping me accountable and saying, like, show up, show up, show up. And if you don't take action in what you want to do, it's never going to happen. And I have
Yeah.
years of me not taking action because I was afraid or doubting who I am.
Yeah.
And that's number one, something that I think a lot of women, we are the first ones to doubt ourselves. First
Yeah.
ones to doubt ourselves.
It's
So,
true. It's
yeah.
true. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your journey. And I can't wait to see what happens next with you.
I know. I'm excited. And honestly, I think setting my goals for 2025 the other day, I was like, okay, I can't wait to tell Megan all of the things that I want to do in 2025.
I love it. I can't wait for that call.
Yep, yep. I'm not done with it yet. I don't know how. I'm still kind of figuring out the list.
All right. Well, I'm ready.
Yep.
Amazing, Sierra. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I just appreciate you so much. And it's such a pleasure and joy to see you grow and shine and soar.
Thank you for you. I appreciate you. And if you are not, coached by Megan or have anything with Megan, you guys need to hop on that. Like, don't like immediately, like, here's my card. Whatever Megan's doing, you just need to do. I'm just letting you know right now.
Go. Thank you. All right, everybody. Until next time, remember to design a business and life that is built to last.